Good morning, everyone. The moment of truth is here. UFC 291, Salt Lake City, elevation, bright lights, big city, 11 fights. All 11 fights are currently favored to end inside the distance. Main event of the evening, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, rematch. Fantastic card headed our way. We are locked in, ready for action. So let's get this breakdown started on your beautiful fight morning. Here we go. Miranda Maverick taking on Priscilla Cachoeira in a gut check fight. Miranda Maverick coming off of a loss to Jasmine Jasudavicius, and Miranda Maverick got ran through last time out. This is a defining moment of her young career at only 26 years of age, taking on a Priscilla Cachoeira who is closing in on her 35th birthday. She will fight like hell when she's in there, especially late in fights. If she has the ability to get back to the feet, she's going to go for it. And Miranda Maverick she better be ready for this, because I see a tornado of activity taking place inside of the UFC's octagon. Miranda Maverick will likely be forced to dig deep. And we've seen Cachoeira attempt to eye gouge opponents. She did it against Jillian Robertson. She is going to try to win by any means necessary. So this is going to be a dogfight. I have no action on this bout, primarily because we've seen Miranda Maverick in the past. I believe she was a doctorate student at Old Dominion University, and her career path in the future, and her future is up in the air right now, as far as I'm concerned, as far as a mixed martial artist. And this is gut check time. I'm going to be picking Miranda Maverick, but if there's a dog that comes through on this card, Priscilla Cachoeira is a live dog here. She is one tough lady who's going to go for it. But give me Miranda Maverick. Next up, Matthew Semelsberger taking on Uros Medic. Uros Medic coming in as the plus 180 underdog. We locked in Matthew Semelsberger at minus 148. This bout is interesting because Medic is taking this fight on short notice, and he's typically competing at lightweight. He made a lot of noise on the Alaskan regional scene, and we've seen Matthew Semelsberger battle-tested. He's come up short in a number of big spots, but he's fought his ass off, and he has the win over Jake Matthews that, in retrospect, looks phenomenal on paper. Last time out, just had difficulty getting off of his back, and in this spot, I don't think that Medic is going to be the one holding Semelsberger down. Semelsberger's the larger fighter with a full fight camp who, I'll say this, Medic, much cleaner striker of the two. He's a fighter who's going to give himself the best opportunity at victory early. But the longer this fight goes, Semelsberger is a dog, and he has multiple paths to victory here. The striking, the power. He isn't the most pretty, most flashy fighter out there. And his grit, his determination, and we've seen in his UFC debut also how deep he was willing to go in that spot. So I'm going to be picking Matthew Semelsberger. I think that he does get this done inside the distance, and if he doesn't get it done in the first round, it could potentially come back. It could happen later, but Semelsberger, in the lead up to his last fight, he made a statement in an interview where he said he's at peace with knowing that he could potentially get knocked out. And that's what he wants to, one thing he wants to accomplish is be willing to step into the fire and take what comes back at him. You need to take risks in order to accomplish your goals. And Matthew Semelsberger is one of those fighters. And he's getting better and better despite coming up short last time out. I see improvements in his game. I'll be picking Matthew Semelsberger and at minus 148. I think that was a decent, some decent value there. So great bout. Great bout. We've got a lot of comments in the section. We got a lot of comments this morning. Good morning, Ben. Good to see you. Liam, great that you're here. Remember, your vibe attracts your tribe, and that is truth. I'm a big believer in that. Good morning, Jazz. Great to have you here today. JP, good morning. Wow, there's a lot of folks in here right now. This is phenomenal. On this beautiful fight morning, as we navigate through the terrain here, Professor Chaos is in the house. Good morning. Let's go. Get ready. Get ready, Timmy. Mike, good morning. We are working our way through these comments. We've got all right, the flyweight fight. Yes, we're going to talk about that in a second, Lags. Oh, are you ready? All right, so let's move right to it. CJ Vergara taking on Vinicius Salvador. We're going to be talking flyweights here. And Vergara, we know, tough as nails. The Clayton Rodriguez taught us a little bit about who he is. The Ode Osborne fight also. He's a fighter who's also been put on skates in many bouts, and his toughness has helped him come through the other side. By the way, Daniel Lacerda was on his way to victory there. He had Vergara trying to, I'm going to say, beyond stay evasive. He was Chelsea Chandler-esque, running away from his opponent to try to regain his wits. And Vergara can be had on the feet. So this is a dangerous fight against Vinicius Salvador, who missed weight in dramatic fashion here. Vinicius Salvador, how good does that Shannon Ross victory look right now? It doesn't look great. I mean, I know he did put Ross out multiple times, and Ross was coming off of he was fighting with appendicitis in that matchup, but still, Vinicius Salvador early is a incredibly dangerous fighter. The problem here, this fight's at altitude, so he also doesn't have the best gas tank. He was coming off of a loss to Altamirano, who that was one of the sloppiest flyweight fights I've seen in quite some time. I had no action on that bout, and in this spot, I believe I picked Altamirano in that matchup. But here, I'm going to be leaning with the underdog, Salvador, just for a couple of reasons. There's a short shelf life here, though. So if this fight gets out of the first round, Salvador, his meter's going to drop, and we've seen it in a number of bouts. Vergara, he's tough, he's gritty, he has a decent chin, and Vinicius Salvador attempts low-risk maneuvers, these spinning attacks. He's very long. He reminds me of, I forgot the name of the Pride Fighting Championships fighter who took on Mauricio Shogun Hua. Diabate. I gotta remember who it was, but similar in that respect, but much smaller fighter here in Salvador. I'll be picking Salvador to win, but I would not be touching his money line here. I think that the way to play it is inside the distance if you're going to attack this fight. I don't see Salvador making it to the final bell. And also take a look at the fight doesn't go the distance line as well. But Vergara could potentially pull this out. Dangerous spot here. I just don't like Vergara's, his skill set isn't much to write home about. I mean, he relies on toughness often. And we saw Lacerda was having his way with him. Next up, Jake Matthews taking on Darrius Flowers. Darrius Flowers plus 225 at the betting window. Jake Matthews minus 265. Matthews coming off of the loss to Matthew Semelsberger. And Matthews is a bit of a mixed bag here. I wish he would leave Australia and he could find another team out there, but he doesn't drift too far away from his comfort zone. And he is a skilled fighter. He's been in the game for a long time, been a UFC veteran here. And he's taking on Darrius Flowers, who who was a massive underdog in his Contender Series matchup where he won when he was caught in I believe, an inverted triangle at one point and ended up getting slammed and broke his, I believe it was the opponent broke his clavicle, and Flowers comes out the other side as the victor on paper. And Flowers, you listen to the commentary in that Contender Series bout, and apparently Bilal Muhammad was singing his praise of Flowers and talking about his wrestling as well as his powerful strikes. And you look at Flowers' resume, and he does have a bunch of knockouts there, but he's taking this fight on short notice against Matthews, who's the more proficient fighter from many different facets of the game. I'll be picking Matthews to win inside the distance, and I'd like to see what Flowers looks like on a full camp, but I do not have faith in Darrius Flowers. If he is going to get it done, it's going to be likely a one-shot deal where he lands a blow that Matthews is not prepared for. Let's see. Timothy says UFC 291 has him all fired up. Myself as well. JP played Vergara as soon as he saw the weight miss by Salvador. I understand that perspective, but you may even get a better line live. Vergara, yes, he did get mule kicked upside the head. Flowers sub live. I don't necessarily think that's the way this fight ends. But I'm picking Matthews to win and to win inside the distance. This is a get right spot for Jake Matthews, but I'm not touching the money line straight. Roman Kopylov taking on Claudio Ribeiro. Claudio Ribeiro plus 185 at the betting window. And Roman Kopylov, who is coming off of a victory over Puna Soriano, and we see that he's more composed out there when he fights. Roman Kopylov is a fighter who's comfortable at range, and this fight likely is going to take place in a range striking affair. Ribeiro, watch out for his corner as they're making their walk to the octagon. They'll be taking their time, and you're going to hear a lot of hoopla, and the corner people will be riling him up. Ribeiro, I was at his fight last time out against Holmes, and we saw Ribeiro landing bungalows. He was landing at will on Holmes, and Holmes did not look like he was a UFC fighter in that matchup. But now it only takes one. We know Ribeiro is a dangerous fighter, but here, Kopylov, if he stays composed and he's able to maintain his distance, he does have solid cardio in this fight. The better cardio. I'll be picking Kopylov to win. I didn't play this money line, not touching it, but this is a live betting opportunity as well. Roman Kopylov, keep an eye on how things look in the first round. But if Ribeiro gets it done, it's likely early or bust. Let's see. We've got some additional comments here. Let's see. Evan, good morning. Great to have you. Wish you best of luck with your plays. Shady says he loves fading Puna Soriano, that is. And the best corner in the game for Ribeiro. Interesting. So the pick's going to be Kopylov. I could see him getting it done via decision, but I'm not touching that money line. Now, this is one of the people's main events of the card. We've got Derrick Lewis taking on Marcus Rogerio de Lima. De Lima's coming in as a minus 205 favorite, and I think that's in part due to it looks like Derrick Lewis has fallen off of a cliff headed into this fight. Man, this is a tough one. You have 38-year-old heavyweights with many, many miles on the odometer. And who has the better victories on paper here? Derrick Lewis, far and away. Derrick Lewis, one thing I'll say, when you watch him fight, there were many moments where he was taking a beating and he plays possum. This is the key. We haven't seen Derrick Lewis play possum in quite some time. And I expect Marcus Rogerio de Lima, fighting out of a great camp out of ATT, to come in and utilize his leg kicks, try to stay at range early, and not force a firefight out of Derrick Lewis. But Derrick Lewis going to sit back. He's going to wait. And as soon as De Lima attacks, I expect Lewis to charge at him and land and use these his reach advantage here. The challenge is, though, what happens first? Does Lewis get his legs chopped off by De Lima before he lands that kill shot? That is my question. So I have no action on this bout. I was looking at the fight doesn't go the distance and the under 1.5 and the under 2.5. This fight is at altitude. Man, this is a tough fight. It must also be mentioned that Derrick Lewis looks in the best shape of his entire career headed into this matchup. I don't think that's going to change the lower half of his body and what we've seen out of his knees and the way he walks around and moves inside of the octagon. He hasn't had the best movement. So De Lima's got to play this safe. He's got to chop Lewis down, and it's a dangerous fight. It's a very dangerous fight. And to those who are speculative about how fighters look on the scale and don't put any stock into it whatsoever, I point you in the direction of Aspen Ladd's final UFC attempt to make weight, and also Sijara Eubanks in her final attempt to make weight. They are former UFC fighters. They have not, they did not make weight. People went out of their way and were making significant plays on both Aspen Ladd and Sijara Eubanks, and these are fighters who struggled previously on the scales. So there is something to be said about how fighters look on the scales. Sometimes that translates. It's not everything, but it is a small piece of the puzzle. And in a situation like this with Derrick Lewis with his back against the wall, coming in the best shape of his life, I do put some stock into that. I do think that this is an extremely volatile matchup, and I'm not picking it. I'm not playing a side here. I'll be picking Marcus Rogerio de Lima. But one thing here is that this is a very dangerous fight. Look at Marcus Rogerio de Lima's victories. Let's be honest with ourselves. You have Ben Rothwell at the end of his career here. You have, it's a horrible look when it comes to comparing both of these fighters' resumes. And now Derrick Lewis is not who he was, but he is capable of landing a kill shot here. And I think that might happen. I got to be honest with folks here. And I'd like to see Derrick Lewis win this fight. I'm going to be rooting for Derrick Lewis. I think that he has the ability to pull this off, but the writing could be on the wall here, and De Lima is going to be the pick. But I think this is an extremely dangerous fight, and we've seen De Lima, 38 years of age. It's not like he's a spring chicken out there. He's a fighter who's been through many wars. He's given up in the past, and at altitude, momentum is huge here. So whoever gets off early is going to likely win this fight, but then you also have to be concerned about Derrick Lewis playing possum. So give me De Lima. Dangerous fight. Next up, Gabriel Bonfim taking on Trevin Giles. You talk about fighters who look great until they don't. Trevin Giles is one of those fighters. I know he's coming off of a victory over Preston Parsons, but for the most part, this is a fighter who is the wheels are going to fall off, and it happens often. And against Gabriel Bonfim, a fighter who has yet to taste defeat at only 25 years of age, with the reaches here are comparable, the height is comparable, and the quickness of Bonfim. I know we got to watch out for the jab of Giles, but the potential for the capitalization on the ground, that all goes to Gabriel Bonfim. I'm going to be picking Gabriel Bonfim here, but if Giles is going to get this done, it's going to be a bonehead maneuver by Gabriel Bonfim. I don't expect him to make massive catastrophic errors like I've seen out of Trevin Giles in the past. And we're going to talk about a fighter who makes catastrophic errors inside the octagon next. But give me Bonfim in that matchup. That fighter who's made many catastrophic errors inside of the UFC's octagon is Michael Chiesa. He looks great until he doesn't. We've seen this happen many, many times in the past. He's a smart fighter too. You listen to his commentary outside of the cage, or even when he's commentating fights. He's got a solid head on his shoulders, but he wilts under pressure. And here's another situation, the other side of the fight. That's why this fight is a gamble here. Kevin Holland, you want to talk about some bonehead maneuvers. How about him letting Stephen Thompson back to his feet? We've seen that happen. He did it multiple times. That was a fight that was in the bag for Kevin Holland there. He had a clear path to victory on the mat versus Stephen Thompson, but he had too much pride, let the ego get in the way, and would rather have a stand-up affair against Stephen Thompson. Whew. So then you go back to that fight also where Kevin Holland, injures his hand in the bout, right? And he takes a fight against Ponzinibbio. And it must be mentioned that the fight against Ponzinibbio, Kevin Holland's winning that fight with one hand. He's defeating Santiago Ponzinibbio with one hand. And it hasn't been that far since that matchup. And Chiesa, you watch his fights, he's going to attack via grappling. His stand-up is horrific. This is a night and day when it comes to the stand-up here. So Kevin Holland has a massive advantage on the feet. Kevin Holland has a massive advantage in the cardio department. This fight does take place at elevation. Do I believe Michael Chiesa is going to have grappling success early? I think that's likely. I think that is likely. But Kevin Holland has a decent submission defense game. And also the Rafael Dos Anjos fight, that is a concern of mine watching that fight back. But Kevin Holland and RDA are completely different body types here. And that fight, I know, was, I believe, one of the first few fights at welterweight for RDA. So in this spot, I'm going to be picking Kevin Holland. I think that he has the massive cardio edge, the massive edge in the stand-up, and also the deeper this fight goes, I expect Kevin Holland to come alive. Also, anytime they're on the feet, Kevin Holland should be lighting Michael Chiesa up. So I played 1.5 units on Kevin Holland at -145. Line is sitting at -140 now. But yes, there is a world where Michael Chiesa locks up a body lock on Kevin Holland and holds him there for a significant amount of time. And it's frustrating. And those are some of the most frustrating tickets to hold, is when your fighter gets stuck on their back and they have no plan B to get up. So, but give me Kevin Holland to win. I think that he has a number of paths to victory in this spot, and he is going to be the pick, Kevin Holland. We've got a number of comments in the comments section here. Let's see. Shady's talking about the Lewis de Lima fight, that the line got steamed. Yes, he is looking. Lewis was looking in shape for the first time ever. His fitness also suggests he's maybe in the right mental state. I mean, it's can't be difficult to get up for a fight against de Lima. Let's be honest with ourselves. Giles striking is a big factor here. Let's see. You can argue the same for Holland in the Wonder Boy fight. I agree. Fight IQs are a push here. That is true. Chiesa and Holland. Great point. Great point. So here we are. Tony Ferguson, 39 years of age, taking on Bobby Green. Bobby Green coming in as the massive favorite, -350. I saw a couple of tickets posted on Twitter that folks got in at -110 or so on Bobby Green. Wow. That was looked like a significant amount of closing line value has been secured, but we know there are no certainties in this game. And I look back to Tony Ferguson's career, and the last time he really looked like himself, I know the beginning of the Gaethje fight, he looked solid, and he dropped Gaethje there, but you watch his fight against Cerrone, and that was vintage Tony Ferguson there, and he does not look like the same guy here. The loss to Michael Chandler, man, then the fight against Diaz, oh my gosh. He let Diaz off the hook. Diaz was turning his back, he was having difficulty with the chopping leg kicks of Tony Ferguson. Now you have Bobby Green, who is a couple of years younger than Tony Ferguson. And he has, as far as recipes to beat Tony Ferguson, he has a few of them here. He's got the lightning quick strikes. He's got the head movement. He's able to slip punches and counter. And Ferguson's going to be coming across Bobby Green, and he does not have great defense, Tony Ferguson, and he's willing to throw some unorthodox techniques at his opponents. Oof. I'm going to be pulling for Tony Ferguson here, but I expect Bobby Green to come out and finish Tony Ferguson. Sad. I don't want to say it, but that's the way I see this fight playing out. And at 39 years of age, the other thing was, you watch the interviews, and Tony Ferguson is saying that he feels that there's fear inside of Bobby Green. He can see the fear. Now, you don't want to light a fire under Bobby Green here. That brings out the best in Bobby Green. He loves moments like this. I expect these guys to be yapping at each other in the middle of the octagon. I expect the crowd to be on their feet, and I'm going to be pulling for Tony Ferguson. I hope he pulls this out, but the pick's going to be Bobby Green. Next up, where we have Jan Blachowicz taking on Alex Pereira in a light heavyweight fight that has some title implications here. We know, I've said it before, Magomed Ankalaev, I consider him to be the number one light heavyweight on planet Earth. Some folks may say Yuri Prochazka is the best fighter at that weight class. Others may feel that Jamal Hill is. Jamal Hill's going to be on the shelf for quite some time, and Magomed Ankalaev should be fighting for a belt. But let's talk about this matchup here. Alex Pereira, who's only, I believe, 3 or 4 months removed from being brutally knocked out in one of the most spectacular knockouts we've ever seen by Israel Adesanya. But let's be honest, Israel Adesanya came pretty darn close to losing that fight. He had to play possum himself and landed a beautiful counter there. And Pereira was looking great early against Israel Adesanya. And now he's a few months removed from that fight. He's taking on Jan Blachowicz, who has a victory over Israel Adesanya. Are we going to play MMA math here? Doesn't necessarily work. Jan Blachowicz, 40 years of age. Alex Pereira, 36 or so, right? Pereira, massive for the middleweight division, and also he looks pretty darn big here headed into this matchup with Glover Teixeira in his corner. We mentioned the quote earlier that your vibe attracts your tribe, and that is what I am a believer in. This is about where Blachowicz has the much better grappling here. We saw Pereira struggle on the mat, and we know he's not a grappler. Blachowicz is, and Blachowicz can also strike with the best of them. He outstruck Israel Adesanya, who was fearful of the ground game or he was concerned with Blachowicz's ground game up at 205 pounds. Here, though, I believe that Pereira is going to fare a little bit better than Adesanya, and there is the potential for this fight to end early, especially if Blachowicz gets this fight to the mat. So I played the under 2.5 here at minus 155. I believe it's sitting at minus 180 or so now at most books. This fight I don't expect to go to a decision, and I'm going to be picking Alex Pereira to win. But this is one of those fights where it could turn on a dime. It could really turn on a dime. Blachowicz, just a few minutes in, if he's able to take Pereira down, that's Blachowicz's world there. And I know he's been working with Glover, so it's a dangerous fight. So I'm going to be picking Pereira to win by knockout. I think that's the most likely outcome that we'll see here. So take a look at that, or you can play the other 2.5. Next up, main event of the evening, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, part 2. I was on Dustin Poirier at minus 135 in the first iteration of this matchup. I played him for 1.5 units. And here we are 5 years later. Dustin Poirier coming in as a minus 150 betting favorite, and Justin Gaethje sitting at plus 130. This is one of those fights where you have the BMF belt on the line, right? So that ups the ante. A lot of hoopla surrounding that. especially when Masvidal enters the octagon with the belt, etc. And then you also have the altitude. You have 5 rounds, and you have a fighter in Dustin Poirier who typically comes out dialed in the first few seconds. He's ready to go. I was at Dustin Poirier's fight against Jim Miller, came out guns blazing. Later the fight went. This was a number of years ago, I believe 2017 or so, but you see Justin Gaethje has a similar skill set in the landing the leg kicks. But here's the thing. Gaethje, there's been much more evolution in his game. He looked on the scales yesterday like he cut a lot of weight and that he also is about to put back on a lot of weight. Poirier looked the same as he always does, in great shape. So Gaethje's evolution, I was blown away by the Fiziev matchup, and I know that that is not what's going to happen here against Poirier. Poirier is a very accurate striker, and Justin Gaethje does not have great head movement. I know he's been working on that for the past few years, but he has improved dramatically. We got to be honest with ourselves. Justin Gaethje has fought more composed, and we saw Trevor Whitman reel Justin Gaethje in at times, and I expect him to do that here and keep Gaethje composed against Poirier, who will likely find early success. Dustin Poirier, that is. But Gaethje, he can crack. He's evolving. I believe he's the more durable fighter here. Dustin Poirier has proved himself 1,000 times. He has gone to the well. If you talk about a fighter who should be making 7, 8 figures when they step into the octagon, Dustin Poirier is that fighter. He has put his body on the line time and time and time again against tough competition. And ultimately, I think that may lead to his demise here against Justin Gaethje, who is, in my eyes, the hungrier fighter, the fighter who's evolved much more since the first fight. And also, this fight being at elevation, I think Justin Gaethje is going to be the fighter with the better gas tank, who can push harder, who's going to be able to both of these fighters can dig just as deep. But I think that the durability and Dustin Poirier, his body may end up taking a hit here. And that's why I'm playing Justin Gaethje. I think that Gaethje, if he fights composed and picks his spots, that's one of the mottos of the show here. I think that that's going to be a difference maker for Gaethje. But there's going to be a point in time in this fight where one of these fighters pours it on, and that may lead to the fight-ending sequence. So give me Justin Gaethje here. We played it for 1 unit at plus 125. The line is now at plus 130. I think there's a bit of value on Gaethje here. This line, Poirier was initially, he was bet up. And here we are. Main event. 11 fights. So go get what's yours. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the support. If you wouldn't mind subscribing and leaving a comment in the comment section, liking the video. We are here every week busting our tuckus and putting it all out there. So here we go. Let's get after it. Let's see. We've got a couple of comments here. Gaethje fighting more measured and technical doesn't necessarily help him against someone who does it better. But you have 5 rounds. 5 rounds. Go get what's yours, Lags. Wish you the best. Thank you, everybody. Let's have a great fight day. And this is what it's all about. My brothers. Let's go.